Hello.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Honorable Shastri, sir.
Good morning.
Very good morning, sir. Yeah. Now you're sitting. Your visibility is good, and if you can just adjust to the system. Good morning, Father Emmanuel.
Good morning, Shastri sir.
Good morning, sir. Emmanuel, sir. How are you?
So welcome to Kristu Jayanti.
Yes.
So with your consent, we shall start the meeting.
Yes. I'm ready.
Yes. Shall I start, sir?
Yes, please.
The collapse of good conscience and the absence of accountability and public scrutiny have led to crimes against humanity and violations of international law. Nelson Mandela. A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Vani, faculty member, Kristu Jayanti College of Law, extend you all a hearty welcome to the Nyaya Samvada with Dr. T.N. Shastri, Professor, Department of Law, Savitribai Phule, Pune University, and former Vice Chancellor, Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai, on the topic Significance of International Law and Relations During the Pandemic. We are indeed very grateful to have you with us, sir. Nothing is impossible for those who trust in God. The purpose of prayers is not to receive what you asked for, but to strengthen your relationship with God. Let us seek God's presence and guidance at this momentous occasion through the invocation.
Care to know my name, or care to feel my heart. Who am I that the bright and morning star would choose to light the way for my ever-wandering heart? Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling, Lord, you catch me when I'm falling. Told me who I am. I am yours. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling, Lord, you catch me when I'm falling, and you told me who I am. I'm yours, I'm yours, I'm yours.
Thank you. A welcome goes beyond words, creates a feeling of care, gives a sense of pleasure, and it acknowledges the presence of everyone in the gathering. Now I request Professor Dr. Mohan R. Bolla, Principal, Christu Jayanti College of Law, to welcome the guest and the gathering and also to give a small prelude to the session.
Sabha Saraswati Namah. Respected Professor Dr. T.S.N. Sastry Garu, Reverend Father Emmanuel P.J., Sri Shyam Padman, Professor Sivakumar, various professors from different colleges and universities all over India, my dear advocate friends, and students from various universities and colleges all over India, and our lovely Jayantian students of law. It's indeed a great privilege. I take this moment for inviting our chief guest, who has an illustrious career and basically having been a great academician touching the minds of various students, research scholars. He has been proactive, so proactive an academician that he has been inspiring young minds throughout his illustrious career, culminating in his career as the Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University, National Law University. And he had brought in several reforms in the national level law university education, and the path-breaking initiatives sir had taken are very, very laudable. And I take this opportunity to welcome Honorable Sir to this great platform initiated by Christu Jayanti College of Law, and has been continuously organizing sessions under the flagship Nyaya Sambada. Honorable Sir, hearty welcome to you. Kindly unmute yourself, sir. And Reverend Father Emmanuel P.J., representing the management of Christu Jayanti College, headed by my fathers, have been extending such a great support that we feel all the way and live in with the spirit of leading our activity to excellence and to cater to the legal academic acumen of our law students and faculty members and the advocates and faculty members from different parts of the country, by organizing this kind of programs, which would definitely enlighten and empower various members of the legal fraternity so that they can serve better in the society. And especially the budding advocates are getting such great exposure, whereby they will equip themselves with all the holistic knowledge and spirit, so that by the end of their career, they would attain all such confidence to fare well in their avocations. Hearty welcome to you, Father.
Thank you.
And we have the gracious presence of Sri Shyam Padman, who has a mission, besides being a very great advocate, a senior advocate practicing in Supreme Court as well as the High Court of Kerala and different other high courts, he has been supporting us by not only organizing such legal empowerment webinars, almost nearing to 300 now. He has been extending such academic support by making himself so familiarized to Krishna Jayanti that he has been a member of the Krishna Jayanti College of Law, and we have been enriched with his initiative of organizing such webinars throughout this pandemic, and his presence would make things more and more enlightened, and I take this opportunity to welcome him. Shyam Padman sir, hearty welcome. I take this opportunity to welcome Professor Sivakumar, my good friend from Prasanna College of Law. He is a professor retired from Telangana University in Jamabad. Hearty welcome to you, sir. And various other professors whom I could not, whose presence I could not see directly, but I understand that there is a galaxy who has been joining in this session and already joined, and I take this opportunity to welcome all of them. And last but not the least, our good students from different parts of the country and the faculty members, advocates, and our own students of Jayantian students of law. Hearty welcome to you all, especially this Nyaya Samvada on the significance of international law. It reminds me of only one focal point, namely now that with the globalization, liberalization, we see the entire globe as a small village, and the international law now has a perspective to look at the common international citizen vis-a-vis the country wherein a particular that common individual is living, and the world at large. And international relations shall keep in that policy as a driving force that this common little citizen of the world must no way feel solitary or as singled out during the pandemic, especially with respect to the health care that is sought to be provided, that must have been provided to ensure the human rights universally recognized. And with this background in mind, we are looking forward to hear from the very great deliberation from a doyen of international law, Professor T.S.N. Sastry Garu, and we look forward to have a very great session so that we'll be enlightened with such perspective with which we are expected to demand even the governments to cater to the needs of the common citizen, the global citizen. And with these few words, I take this opportunity to welcome you all once again to this great session. Thank you very much.
Very happy to have Professor Dr. Mohan Rao Bolla, who leads us in all our endeavors in our journey. Thank you, sir. We welcome you too, sir. Thank you. Reverend Father Emmanuel PJ, Director, Christu Jayanti College of Law, is an excellent leader, mentor, and motivator who constantly strives to take our college to the greater heights. Now I request Reverend Father Emmanuel PJ to give the presidential address. Over to you, Father.
Thank you, Professor Vani. Good morning, respected Professor Dr. Tamasuri Narayana Shastri, whom we often with respect call Dr. T.S.N. Shastri, sir. All the respected judges and senior advocates and resource persons and professors from various institutions across the country, and all the respected faculty members and the parents of Kristu Jayanti College of Law student community. It is indeed a great honor for Kristu Jayanti family to once again to be active on this platform under the flagship of Nyaya Samvada, wherein we are honored to be enlightened by the erudite scholarship of Professor Dr. T.S.N. Shastri, sir, who is an exceptional versatility in his academic legal journey, being a professor and a vice chancellor, and who held a lot of important positions all through his more than 32 years of academic journey. As I understand, sir yourself was the dean, the controller of examination, the head of the department, the director of School of Excellence in Law, university coordinator, and many other titles and positions you held, which talks a lot about your authority and your level of inspiration and guidance that you have been sharing with countless generations. And today, Kristu Jayanti College of Law is also honored by your gracious presence. And in the name of Kristu Jayanti College Management, Reverend Dr. Augustine George, the principal of the College Autonomous, and all the other fathers and management team and deans and professors, I take the privilege once again to acknowledge our gratitude for your gracious presence and your willingness to enlighten our students and our stakeholders and on this platform. On the outset, I thank you for your gracious presence, sir. Though we gather frequently on this platform, introducing ourselves to most of the people who are here must be aware of the presence of Kristu Jayanti in Bangalore. For the information of those who are probably joining for the first time, I will just brief who we are and what we are in a very few minutes or moments. Kristu Jayanti is a educational continuation of a CMI educationalist, Saint Kuriakos Elias Chavara, a CMI priest, the founder of the CMI congregation from 19th century, who inspired some 3,000 of us over the centuries to gather and come together, and who believed in social transformation and spiritual transformation, educational transformation by bringing our energies together and working together as a team and living in a house called ashrams and exhibit and share the gifts and blessings that we have in our lives by dedicating ourselves to the needs of the humanity, who are running some 700 plus in higher secondary schools and institutions across the country, and some 59 plus colleges in the country, wherein we believe that through education, you can build a society and you can transform a society. And Kristu Jayanti is one of those 59 colleges across the country. And here in our campus, we have some 8,000 plus students, though during this pandemic, all of them are working or studying from home. We are all looking forward to the day when all of us will be coming back to this place called the family, Kristu Jayanti. And Kristu Jayanti College of Law is a small offshoot of this campus with the fourth year of its existence, having less than 500 students in this particular entity. but very much blessed to have the gracious presence of luminaries like Shastri sir, with all the respected honorable justices of Supreme Courts and international courts, and senior advocates and attorney generals and professors and deans and other luminaries who often come and interact with our students while we were able to bring them in the physical mode before the pandemic, and now during the pandemic it's very much, as we know, during the online mode, but giving us and our students an enlightenment and hands-on experience for an interactive sessions to understand various legal concepts and themes and practices. And today, as we are taking the importance of international law, I believe, which is very relevant and important, as we often say that the globalization and nationalization are in debate, and many countries are now adopting the make in the country concepts, wherein previously we thought about making the world as a global village. And so the international trade relations and other concepts and the legal components are to be examined and understood based on the pandemic and probably the post-pandemic and other scenarios in this today's world. And without much delay, I wanted to once again acknowledge the gracious presence of all of the resource persons who are always been with us to enlighten us with interactive questions and sessions, wherein today's presence of TS and Shastri sir is greatly considered as an honor, and it is greatly appreciated by all of us, and especially, I'm sure, the students and parents of Kristi Jayanti College of Law. And with great enlightenment and great delight, we welcome once again all of you to this platform. And I request sir to kindly visit our campus once everything gets better, and when we are all able to move around freely without any masking of our needs and our emotions and even our physical presence. So once again, thanking you and wishing everyone a wonderful enlightenment time of this luminous program. May God bless each and every one of us to stay safe, and I remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Father, for your thoughtful words. Now I call upon Ms. Shubhashri, student BA LLB second year, to introduce today's guest to the gathering. Over to you, Shubhashri.
Good morning. It's my immense pleasure to introduce today's guest. Professor Dr. T.S. Shastri is a graduate degree holder in law, possessing 35 years of teaching experience in law. Sir's areas of interest are international law, human rights, intellectual property rights, law and global justice, and Constitution of India. Sir has worked as the professor at the Department of Law at Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Sir has also worked as Vice Chancellor of Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai, Vice President of the Indian Society of International Law. Sir has worked as reader and lecturer in international studies at former School of International Studies, Pondicherry University. Sir has worked in the administrative department as the University Coordinator for Human Rights Education Program since 2010 to 18 at Savitribai Phule University. And he has worked as a head of the Department of Law at University of Pune. Dean of Planning and Development at Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai. Sir is the invitee of International Workshop on Indology, Law, Management and Philosophy at University of Lyon, France, Government of France Cultural Exchange Program in the year 2013, and in European Commission Faculty Exchange Fellow between 2010 to 11. Sir has also completed projects on the UGC project on Center for Human Rights and Duties Education, Pondicherry University, and Human Rights Education for All in Savitribai Phule, Pune University. Sir has totally published 4 books: Human Rights and Duties in India, Law, Policy, Society, and Enforcement Mechanism, published by the University of Pune in the year 2014, Human Rights of Vulnerable and Disadvantaged Groups, published by University of Pune in the year 2012. Introduction to Human Rights and Duties, published by the University of Pune in the year 2011, and State Succession in Indian Context, published by Dominant Books, New Delhi in the year 2004. Sir has also edited books like Law, Development and Justice, India and Human Right Reflection. Sir has published 70 research papers on various aspects of international law, human rights, constitution, law and justice in journals and edited volumes. Sir has received as the Best Innovative Teacher Award by Savitribai Phule, Pune University 2017 and Vijayashri Award from the India International Friendship Society, New Delhi in June 2005 for his contribution to the promotion of human rights education. Now I request Professor Dr. T.S.N. Shastri sir to address the gathering.
Honorable Sir, over to you.
Yes. At the outset, a very warm good morning to one and all.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Principal Mohan Rao, faculty of the college, faculty from various other law schools, advocates, judges, student friends across the nation for joining to listen the lecture on international law and relations and the pandemic. In fact, when the principal contacted me, he said, sir, being an expert, give a lecture on international law perspective on the pandemic, which nobody is talking, various other things are talking. I'm taken aback because directly international law is not concerned with pandemics, nor it has any law or any provision to deal with pandemics. But if we look into international law from different dimensions, the law on pandemic has been developed, which no country, including a developed country like America or UK, does not have any provisions on pandemic. Well, he has added the topic when he sent the topic international relations, which is more complicated than international. Because many people think that international relations is the base for international law. But international law is the foundation for international relations. This many doesn't know. Many think that it is international relations which developed international law. In fact, international relations themselves didn't have a base until Aristotle brought international relations into political science. From political science, slowly it slipped and developed as a subject by itself. Otherwise, international relations had no gainsaying coin currency, which political science professors doesn't accept. But Phil Jacob has made it very clear that international relations are not directly woven, they are woven with politics, political science. Definitely. Because international relations link with diplomacy, diplomatic perspective and others. So relations are of two kinds. One is extreme kind of relations, wherein one has to cooperate and coordinate. And second is diplomatic political relations, which they do on their own for their personal gainsaying to protect their national interests. If we read Palmer and Perkins, the most easiest book, Teacher of Teachers of International Law, Professor B.S. Murthy, my teacher, who had written International Relations under the auspices of the National Law School, which has been updated by my colleague, Professor Rajalakshmi from the same Andhra University Department just last week. Unfortunately, I'm listening 5 minutes before I just jump into the subject that lawyers are suffering in India because of pandemic. I see many stories that lawyers are sitting in home, or some lawyers are selling bhajis. That was in Gujarat. And some lawyers started tea stalls in Tamil Nadu. These lawyers are such pathetic situation because we have not, thanks to Bar Council of India, though I'm a standing council member of the Bar Council of India, I always inform the Bar Council that even in my recent research paper, I told them you have to give flexibility to the program like American Bar Council. I don't know how many of you visit every day American Bar Council. I read American Bar Council every day. I'm a member of the American Bar Council, a visiting member of the American Bar Council, because I can't become a regular member because the fees is very high, which we can't pay. Indians, it should be paid only in dollars. But if you see the American Bar Council, what a magnanimous work that it does for the lawyers and law students and law teachers, which no bar council in India is doing. Just to have a look, there are around 385 people are there. I'm extremely happy that for international lecture, this many people are coming. I didn't expect more than 30 or 40 because India never respects international law, nor teaches international law, particularly South. Except Delhi is famous for international law. Unfortunately, today South is dwindling for international law. Particularly Bangalore University, Madras University, Andhra University, Kerala University. These are some of the tops, and even Nagpur, though it is in West, but it is considered as a part of South. But the top for international law. What happened to the gigantic figures? Had we teach international law, if we start running programs in international law, today lawyers would have not faced this problem because global lawyers have big demand in international law in pandemic also. It's one of my friends in Australia, whom I wanted to talk, he said, at least a week later I can talk to you. I have no time to talk. I'm not joking. But unfortunately, in India, we don't read international law, particularly the other subject, private international. But we practice ADR, alternative dispute, arbitration. I heard and became mad. Why not other subjects like negotiation? Or why not private international law, mediation, and other perspectives that should be heard and start in Indian law schools? Unfortunately, no law school is ready to have established centers and offer courses or training programs. Of course, Indian Society of International Law is still offering. The summer course is now open. Very cheap, just for 4,000 rupees. We give a training program for 12 days with experts all around the world. This is only, and I tried to establish Indian Society of International Branch in South India as a vice president. Unfortunately, the Delhi politics and the internal politics in India, the problem is if we want to develop something, somebody will pull you something. Some of my own friends from South pulled that we don't want a branch in South. Why? Is it Delhi's property? South, which has developed the base for international law, should not come. Don't think I'm wasting your time. I really feel pity as a student of international law that None can discuss. If we look into American Society of International Law website, thousands and thousands and millions of papers have been flooded on international law, particularly on pandemics and international. When Mohan Rao asked me to deliver lecture on international, as I told you, I was blinking what to speak on. Then I recollected teachers of teacher, my own teacher, my mentor, Professor Bakshi's paper in Indian Express last year, May 20th. International law should not be forgotten in pandemics. A beautiful piece of paper in Indian Express he has published. Later, of course, so many have come. Unfortunately, our TV channels, our news channels, our media channels have become of late worst and not to. I've stopped seeing the TV, particularly the news channels, for more than 2 years. Because if one person died, one person get COVID, injection is not there. This person injection is given. Break, see, break. Why don't we, even newspapers, but at least some papers like Hindu, Times or Express publish rarely some good centerpiece articles. Otherwise, we don't have any news. Once COVID is over, something else. Because there are a number of issues that leads with internationalization. Because nowadays people talk of globalization. Because as I'm working on international law and society in a globalized world, the book is I'm just authoring for the LLM students where there is no board. Then I was reading a lot of the perspectives. There are a number of issues where there are no principles or perspectives have been developed. India, which has developed a very beautiful law to deal with pandemic situations in ancient India, today doesn't have a law, and we have to depend upon the 1834 Colonial Act. Then Disaster Management Act, this act at the time. Whether lockdowns and all these things are too necessary, are too important a perspective to be taken into consideration. Because in the transnationalized world, anything that happens in one part of the world has its own effect. That we are seeing in the pandemic now. In international law, when we say anything that happens in one part of the world has another effect on the other parts of the world, we didn't listen. When Malthus proposed the population theory, that if you don't control population, every 100 years you get disasters and the population will wipe out. Marshall was put to jail, but today we praise Marshall as a great economist. And Marshall's theory is happening. Pandemics is not new. Pandemics is a very old symptom. We had a lot of pandemics. We have seen a lot of pandemic situations. And every 100 years, almost a pandemic is coming. And during the First World War, we had a plague. After that, we had some other diseases, cholera, malaria, this, that. Every TV channel shows that this many people have died of COVID. I was just laughing because if you look into the World Health Organization statistics, the people died out of COVID in India, at least, if we see. Is just 1% of the people who died of other diseases. We have not bothered. As if we are dying out of COVID only. Well, it is a disease, which is a dangerous disease. Is it such dangerous compared to other diseases? No. It can be prevented if people are cautious, follow the principles, adopt the government regulations. Why I'm saying, because whatever that happening in a national political scenario happens in international scenario also. When a government or Union of India takes a decision, all the opposition parties criticize. I'm not talking BJP, Congress or anything. I'm talking governments, whichever party may be. Some other government which takes a decision, another government criticizes. Why the state governments and the union government work together instead of fighting even in pandemic situations or in emergent situations? Because many people call Indian constitution is a quasi-federal constitution. This is another myth, because we don't read constitution and we claim experts in constitution. Indian constitution is the only constitution in the world which provided cooperative federation. It is not American scholar who called quasi-federation, so Indian constitution. There is no word called quasi-federation in constitutional history. I am talking constitutional history is the base for international law. Whatever happens in the national scenario, whatever that takes place in the national scenario will reflect in the international scenario. It is cross-border law that deals with the various perspectives. Well, what happened in international law, or what happened in international politics or relations? Wuhan lab, China, WHO, all that put aside. Now, the reality is we are under the grip of pandemic. Well, pandemics have started when the European cholera took place in 1830. And again, a second wave came in 1847 after a lapse of 17 years. A huge second wave has come. Then the multilateral governance of communicable diseases internationally evolved. Taking this into consideration, though there is no direct treaty, direct law that deals in international law, in 1834, a French administrator called for a regulation of various perspectives that led the government of France to think of various perspectives. Particularly in 1851, the government of France convened the first sanitary conference, which followed almost up to 1939. 14 international conferences on sanitary law and regulations have taken place. These 14 conventions, none is binding because not even a single country ratified these conventions. In international law, a treaty comes into force only when it is ratified by a state. And unfortunately, these 14 conventions have not been ratified, and many have not even signed the conventions. That means the priority that we give to global health is very scanty. We blame Government of India. But globally, if you see the sanitary conventions from 1851 to 1939, well, they have laid down extremely beautiful norms. Thanks to international community, recognizing all these conventions, they have drafted a beautiful charter and established a famous organization called World Health Organization in 1948. These sanitary conventions provisions have been incorporated in the WHO Constitution. So WHO has taken and imbibed these sanitary conventions. So international law played a key dynamic role in developing various provisions with respect to pandemics and pandemic law is concerned. Well, the American Sanitary Conventions of 1905 and 1924, because America always thinks this is the only country in the world which follows international to a great extent. whatever personal things may be there, but this country follows international to the great extent, followed by France. These two countries. We also follow under Article 51C of the Constitution. We say international law to be promoted by the state, respected, peace, prosperity has to be embedded, and we have to follow under Article 51C of the Constitution. And the treaty provisions under Article 74, 248 and other provisions, which deals with the law of treaties and the other provisions under the Constitution. Well, these conventions, the American conventions have dealt particularly with respect to cholera, plague, yellow fever, smallpox, typhus, and other diseases. Yellow fungus, now black fungus we are calling. It was yellow at that point of time. So there is nothing new. These are all the diseases that existed. Only names change. Like nowadays we are calling for each cyclone a name. Maybe the disease varies from it because the COVID-19 crisis, particularly in the second wave in India, our political leaders and newspapers are blaming each other. Some say the Prime Minister is responsible, some say opposition is responsible, some say elections are responsible. We are reading every day. But nobody says people are responsible. Have we followed the quarantine principles? Have you followed the principles? The moment the government opens the quarantine, whether you have work or not, we will be roaming on the roads. We don't wear masks. We don't bother sanitary principles. Then we blame the government alone. Whether state or union, whatever it may be. They fight for politics. Why should we teach? Why not teach them? And another thing, as the Indian Science Congress, Indian Institute of Sciences last month defined very clearly, the COVID-19 has changed its variety and perception and magnanimously increased the double fold, and its speed and range has increased to cross the borders also. And in India also, the species has been developed much faster than the first wave. This is the reason. It is not only others might have contributed elections, but who asked you to go to the election? Everybody blames the Election Commission, including the Honorable High Court of Madras also said Election Commission is responsible. Of course, the Supreme Court said constitutional bodies cannot make it. Why do we take part in the election meetings then? Why I'm saying this? Because internationally also this is going on at a cushion level in dealing with various aspects. Well, in 1951, the World Health Organization adopted the international sanitary regulations and then brought international health regulations in 1969. They've been modified in 1975. They've been modified in 2001. They've been modified in 2013. Now they are updating. In fact, under Article 2G of the WHO Convention, the WHO is planning to bring an international epidemic treaty. It is on the draft stage now. To bring in and to see that international perspectives need to be dealt with various aspects. Well, we discuss only WHO and not other organizations and others. Every organization has framed its own guidelines. If we look into ILO framed a set of mandated norms that to be followed by the states. If we look into UNCTAD, UNCTAD has developed various principles. And the various principles that have been brought in under the FAO, UNESCO, you name any organization, each organization has drafted in number of regulations. Unfortunately, we don't read or we don't do research. Our papers, news channels doesn't bring anything on any perspective. The Human Rights Council has issued a huge number of guidelines in the pandemic, how to deal in a book of 75 pages. United Nations is updating every day, every organization related to every particular field. Then, is there any definition of pandemic? Because the 1958 sanitary regulations that have been developed by WHO has led to scholars to work a lot on international law and global health. What we spend on global health is very, very minimal than the waste expenditure that we spend. We don't follow any kind of sanitation or sanitary principles. I'm not praising, but the Swachh Bharat principle that has been advocated by the Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, is one of the best principles. Unfortunately, none of us bothered about Swachh Bharat. It is only tom-tom for 1 year. After that, everybody forgot. We don't follow the principle perspective. This is happening across. So influenza, which is a virus which acquires ability to cause sustainable human-to-human transmission, leading to community outbreaks, is called as influenza according to World Health Organization. Such viruses have the capacity to spread very widely, rapidly, worldwide, causing a pandemic. But is that definition of World Health Organization? Since WHO says authoritative, no. Because the complicated, when the institution makes it complicated, the definition of pandemic is also complicated because the international health regulations under Article 1 says an extraordinary, I'll just read it, an extraordinary event which is determined to constitute a public health risk to other states through international spread of diseases and to potentially require a coordinated international response. Well, the IHR 1958 directly imposes an obligation on the states to follow and deal with various perspectives and cooperative measures to be taken on international health, particularly in pandemic situations. And apart from the international health regulations that have been developed by World Health Organization, well, each sector, like civil aviation, International Civil Aviation Organization has come out with a mandate of 82 pages last year, that how the travelers to be protected, what the quarantine measures to be taken, how the losses to the airports and to the passengers to be compensated. All these guidelines have come in. We don't do research at all. We don't read international at all. International is an alien subject for us. But the literature that has been developed in international law is in trillions of pages than national literature that has been developed. In any country, I challenge. Because, as Professor Bakshi has rightly pointed out in his paper, customary principles of international and particularly gives a very important. And customary principles are binding on the states because they accept customary principles as the binding norms of law on them than any other perspective. And more binding is treaties, because treaties are legal documents which states ratify, and particularly the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, to which all states are parties. Under Article 53 of the Vienna Convention, there is a provision called as jus cogens, preparatory norms. The new norms, new regulations that evolve need to be binding on the states. Even in municipal law, Unfortunately, I blame, of course, I don't, we are responsible. The law teachers in the country should be blamed for teaching law in such a horrible fashion. Okay, Bar Council has not given us freedom. It wants us to teach 21 subjects, but the law teachers are responsible. Of course, there are many reasons. I'm not criticizing directly, but law teachers are also responsible not to teach interpretative perspective of law. Let us accept honestly. Because if a teacher fails to teach, then you can't produce a great lawyer or a great judge or a great politician or a great administrator. We have to teach interpretative perspective. Why I'm saying this? Because I'll just give one example, which Madras High Court delivered a judgment in 2007 by Justice A.P. Shah, for the former Chief Justice of Madras High Court. When we file a case, why I'm telling this? Because Article 53 of the Vienna Conventions preparatory norm, how they bind on international law and on the states. Instead of giving a technical, I'm giving a local example. A decided case by High Court of Madras. It's not my own. A case has come before Madras High Court that we all know about Chandrika soaps, which we use, that controlled by Whirlpool company. Somebody, Chandrika soaps, Whirlpool company is in Bangalore corporate office, factory is in Pondicherry, production center is in Kerala for the Ayurvedic soap. A small unit is in Chennai. These are the brief facts of this case. Somebody produced a replica which violated the copyright of the Chandrika soaps. So the Wipro company preferred a suit and filed a suit in Madras District Court. The court immediately said, since you don't have a corporate office or a factory or anything here, a miniature is there under section 19 and 18 and 19 of CPC, read with other provisions of CPC, the courts have no jurisdiction. The company argued that under Copyright Act, you have jurisdiction. The judges said no, no jurisdiction. Then the case came to the first bench. The first bench also supported the lower court well done. It went on appeal to a division bench. The division bench also supported. Then the company interestingly took the appeal to the first bench, where Justice A.P. Shah was the Chief Justice. I'm more closely associated with this case because I was the head of the Department of Intellectual Property Rights at that time in Chennai. One day I got a phone call from the Chief Justice office. The Chief Justice wants to talk to you. I was surprised because A.P. Shah, a gregarious academician, Justice A.P. Shah. There are so many judges who are academicians. Because day before yesterday, another monumental judgment delivered by Madras High Court by another judge on LGBT rights, which also talks of COVID situation. Of course, he has not highlighted, but that also deals with various perspectives. This morning, news channels at least showed the judgment fully, thanks to the news channels at least. So A.P. Shah asked me, Professor, this is what they say, and whether the judiciary has a jurisdiction. I said, sir, if we depend upon only CPC, there is no jurisdiction, but maybe others also. Others means what? I was a little hesitant, he is being rejected. Then he said, see, this provision of exceptional provisions that are given under Copyright Act confers jurisdiction, is it not? I was taken aback. Then I looked into the provisions. Then I said, yes, sir. You're right, Honorable Justice. He said, not right. It is the interpretation. Then he authored an excellent judgment and said, when one legislation is not specifying another legislation which gives jurisdiction, that should be taken into consideration. CPC is also passed by Parliament. Copyright Act is also passed by Parliament. Both are passed by Parliament. When one doesn't have, the other doesn't give jurisdiction. When other gives the jurisdiction, why not we look into the other law which is applicable? Only CPC, CRPC is the Veda for us. We don't go beyond that. This is what interpretative teaching, which we have to teach within the limited span of time. This needs to be taken into consideration. Well, somebody has given the citation also. Good. 2008. Excellent. Read this judgment. A penumbral judgment that a lawyer need not confine only to CPC if other law gives the jurisdiction. Why I'm saying this? Because under Article 53, the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties, just cogence gives the preparatory norms that have been developed under international humanitarian law, international environmental law, international health law, international human rights, all gives jurisdictions to the states to deal with the pandemic situations, operation and coordination. Because we are right now facing problem. We are so magnanimous. In the first season of COVID, we have produced a lot of vaccination and we supplied vaccination to other countries. Today, when we are in crisis, other countries are not ready to do except with you. So these are the principles that need to be taken into various aspects that need to be discussed under international law. Pandemics and human rights, pandemics and international law, pandemics and domestic violence. Oh, what a type of research that we can do within India. Taking principles of international law in comparative research within India. We don't do comparative research. We don't teach comparative perspective. We don't bother about. Within India, you take a state in India, you take another state in India, do a comparative research of law. Within that, then you draw an inference and various other provisions, which we can do. Because constitution is closely linked with international law. I don't want to go into the provisions of Article 3, which deals with various provisions. Article 1 of the Constitution, Article 294, 295, all deals with international law directly. We don't think of the various perspectives. Why? Because I don't take much time. The subject is very vast. Because thanks to Mohan, at least I have at least browsed at least 2,000 to 3,000 pages in the last 1 week on pandemic, dealing with the various perspectives of pandemic. Well, in human rights, 4 important rights will affect. One is right to life and liberty, right to health and access to public health, which are the central rights for freedom of movement and which will impact cultural rights. Cultural rights means science, technology. In international law and international human rights law particularly, we don't call, because particularly when we call international law, we don't call the proper nomenclature also. We call international law. Public international law of peace, public international law of war. Textbooks are also, since it is point international law, easy we call it human rights, No, it is international law of human rights. We call intellectual property rights. Nationally, internationally, everybody is calling. Wrong wording. Why? Because it should be called as international law of intellectual property rights. We call humanitarian law. No, international law of human rights. It's linked. Because international law is the mother from which the principles have been derived in its branches. So when we deal with these principles, 6 aspects from these 4 rights deal with international law, wherein states need to cooperate, which the United Nations is working. I'm not going into politics because unfortunately the General Assembly and the Security Council, particularly the Security Council, failed in the pandemic situation because of high-level international politics, because of Russia and China. Not the permanent members. We don't want to go into the history. Unfortunately, Security Council has not taken the lead. Though Article 33 to 51 empowers Security Council to deal with various perspectives, we, the people of the United Nations, particularly we Indians, instead of demanding various things, we should demand India should withdraw from UN until the veto is removed, or we have been given a permanent membership. I don't believe permanent membership with veto, because we may also behave like that. Veto should be removed, because veto has been given with a different purpose when the charter was drafted, and today, unfortunately, it became a political tool. Veto has become a political tool. Particularly in the entire history, Russia exercised the highest number of times the veto. And in the highest number of times, it has exercised the veto to protect India for around 65 times. Let us go into the records. I'm not exaggerating anything. That's why we have a good friendship with Russia always. No other country. Of course, nowadays China and others started using it. Well, from the 6 aspects of human rights, that these 3 rights particularly, the 4th I will deal separately, are protecting people's lives is priority in their livelihoods. That means peasants' rights, various perspectives of rights, and other perspectives need to be taken into consideration. And that has to be dealt in various perspectives. I think people are putting veto is the fabric of UN. This is wrong. Please read international law before raising your questions or to expressing your opinions. Veto is not the central point of the charter. Please don't confuse people. The charter has a different purpose. Veto has a different purpose. Veto is not the central point of UN. Peace and security is the central point of UN and the Security Council and the charter, not veto. Veto is only one point. Then the virus, when we think of these rights, we think of only our rights and people died this and that. We don't think rights of sexual minorities or sexually mitigated people, particularly sex workers, third gender. These people's rights nobody bothers in pandemic. Everybody said people started walking from all over India to their places. Only their rights are bothered, but nobody's rights have been bothered. Thanks to an NGO in West Bengal, which raised the litigation before West Bengal High Court, then Supreme Court through Justice Nageswara Rao. The Supreme Court passed guidelines last year how to protect the rights of sex workers and what the role of the state in pandemic situations when they lose their money and life and livelihood. It has come because thanks to BBC, which has interviewed the sex workers' life during pandemic and telecasted, that led the Indian judiciary to intervene. And the Supreme Court of India, through Justice Nageswara Rao, passed the directions. The case is not yet finally disposed of. Only directions have been given. It is still pending before the Supreme Court. Last year, you can read Justice Nageswara Rao's interim directions that have been given to the government of India. The virus doesn't discriminate anybody, east or west, white or black, rich or poor. It doesn't discriminate anybody, but it impacts everybody, and the treatment and treatment perspectives need to be taken into consideration. And it takes everyone's participation in a transparent and equitable perspective. These perspectives which I'm describing, it is not only applicable to individuals, but also to states under international human rights law. Then the threat is no country can beat this alone. All have to join together and deal with various aspects. Well, these are the 6 principles which laid down the centric points which made the World Trade Organization, WTO, to discuss many provisions with respect to intellectual, that is the cultural, the 4th aspect which I said, the cultural rights and the COVID-19. Everybody talks intellectual property rights. But intellectual property and the pandemic, I have not seen a single article in any newspaper or anywhere. So, we need to take into consideration the perspectives that Article 7 of the TRIPS agreement we need to look in. If we look into Article 7 of the TRIPS agreement, the entire objective of the TRIPS agreement is surrounded with Article 7, which surrounds with human rights, which maintains rights and duties. That is Article 29 of the Charter of the United Nations, Declaration of UDHR, Article 29. Because Article 29 says, these rights enshrined in this declaration can be realized only when discharging the duties. Since we are not discharging the duties, we don't have rights. Human rights doesn't talk of right, it talks of the duty, ethical, moral perspective. Immanuel Kant onwards, till date, including John Rawls, everybody advocated the same perspective without even including the most positivist H.L.A. Hart. Of course, Hart doesn't believe on duty, Hart believes only right. But the right cannot innately made without a duty. So the objective of international intellectual property, that is the cultural property, is the protection of enforcement of intellectual property rights need to be regulated for the promotion and the technical innovation for global health. When I ask suddenly how global health has come, if we look into again Article 63 1A bis of TRIPS agreement, right, with Article 767 class 2 bis A subclass C of bis 2 of IPR, TRIPS agreement, right together with Article 7 of the TRIPS agreement, the generic medicines that are produced, particularly in pandemic situation, pandemic perspective, that have been developed under the international sanitary regulations need to be taken into consideration, provided into various perspectives. Because Article 8 of the TRIPS agreement says, socio-economic welfare of the people is the topmost protection for innovation and protection. That means we have patents, we have designs, we have trims, trademarks and other things, and we have clinical trials, clinical trial data, scientific protection. All this subordinates to Article 7 and 8 of the TRIPS agreement. That means nation states should share the information, should share the knowledge, should not think of profit-making monetary perspectives at this point of time. Because recently, the Cipla company has introduced a drug. If you take 2 doses of the drug, you will be immune from COVID. But what is the cost of the drug? More than 1.5 lakhs. Which country has permitted this much potential permitting price when Article 7 and 8 of the TRIPS agreement are mandating the states to work for, particularly Articles 8 says socio-economic producers and users of technical knowledge and also socio-economic welfare must adopt necessary measures to public health. TRIPS only says, we are not saying. TRIPS agreement only says. Article 8 of the TRIPS agreement says public health. That needs to be taken into consideration. So when we deal with various aspects, the manufacturing, particularly manufacturing, marketing, pricing, supply of vaccinations to be at a cheaper cost globally, and global accessibility should be there. And global perspective, some countries say, if you do, we are crazy of going abroad. We don't want to study in India. Though we have best institutions in the country because of dollar currency or pound sterling currency, not anything else. When some countries insist that you do vaccination and only the people are allowed, why don't you supply the vaccination to poor? I'm not talking of India. There are Europe, African countries, some of the African countries where people are bleeding the blood, where there is no medicine or vaccination is available to them because they are not that developed. And they need to be protected and they need to be taken into consideration. Well, even Trademarks Act, if we see, Article 17 deals with descriptive terms of the trademarks and the various perspectives of trademarks need to be taken. And if we link into Article 13 of the Copyright Convention, well, the Copyright Convention also deals with various perspectives. And the WIPO agreements, if we see on copyright or intellectual property rights or cultural property perspective, makes it very clear that there are a lot of limitations even on copyright. Because some companies started saying that if we go into IP protection under Patent Act, maybe governments may take Article 7 and 8 of TRIPS agreement may restrict. So let us go for generic perspective knowledge under copyright. Copyright also has limitations. That also falls under Article 7 and 8. So in this way, if we look in health perspectives, environmental perspectives, various perspectives, in all these perspectives, well, international law continuously deals with either directly or indirectly, and particularly the common Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions deals with the various perspectives that have been developed, and all the rights, all the regulations, all the perspectives that have been developed in international law deals with even private international law with respect to various perspectives, particularly commerce and trade, contract between companies. Even multinational companies fall under the various provisions because they are regulated by WTO, the General Code of WTO, and UNCTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, has imposed regulations on multinational companies, and multinational companies being subservients in the globalized world, those who have to discuss and respect corporate social responsibility, international corporate social responsibility, which again linked with human rights provisions, wherein Article 7 and 8 of TRIPS agreement under cultural property rights deals in. So these are the major 4 rights of human rights, apart from individual areas, women's rights, children's rights, various perspectives that deal with. I think we have to start thinking and looking in and develop a national law instead of Disarmament Management Act or the colonial law. Do deal with a pandemic law, maybe after the Global Pandemic Convention, which WHO is now drafting, seriously discussing. Only last month, the WHO Assembly has called for a global pandemic convention to be entered. We will see global pandemic law, which deals with the national pandemic laws, will be developed soon. And these may be developed and taken. And we need to think of pandemics not now, but pandemics in future. And international law always thinks and develops the principles we're dealing with, because it developed with the conventions in 1850s, 1830s, but till late, we could not develop a global pandemic law. Now only we are thinking of a global pandemic convention. That means we are not that synchronizing with the principles that have been developed under public international law to deal with the pandemic situation and pandemic perspectives. Let us remember that humanity, human respect, humanitarian perspective, peace and security are most important only for the well-being and welfare. As we, the people of the United Nations, promised through the charter that we protect and promote the rights of the people, which we have witnessed in several ways and means. And international law, it is very important. I hope Professor Mohan Rao will take the lead and do regular mentoring on international law in their college, at least to start with and develop, because I'm not joking. As a student of international law, after studying international law, I honestly admit, if you ask me, sir, what do you know about international law? I don't know what is international law. It is such a vast subject. It is such a deliberate subject. It has different connotations. It has different perspectives, particularly in the pandemic.
Clean muddy.
It has dealt with various issues that have been dealing with various aspects. Hence, international deals. International relations, as I told you, is a different subject. Linking international law and relations is nothing but a synchronizing coalition thing. They developed on politics, and that's why I've not gone into international relations perspective, which is entirely different and altogether different subject that deals with the diplomacy. Of course, it relates with international law because diplomacy and other aspects comes in, and there are various aspects. So I thank all the participants for the patient listening. I hope I have conveyed whatever I knew or what I read, what I know from my perspective, but still feel that, and particularly thanks to Mohan Rao and others, giving me a chance to look my own subject from a different angle. Thank you, Vanina.
Very kind of you, sir, for delineating so analytically on these international law and the significance of the international conventions.
This lecture, no, please send it to me, because the director of the World Intellectual Property Organization yesterday, he said, I'm not able to watch because the timing is not matching. Send me the lecture.
Okay, surely, sir, surely. And your suggestions are also noted, and we try our level best to carry forward all those issues. And today we had a fabulous academic feast on international law, I feel, because there are at least the take home in the form of the four main important aspects of human rights, and further delineated into the 6 other facets of that. And very kind of you, sir, for educating us and empowering us all with that know-how in the with the significant notings taken from Kant even, and his philosophy is reflected here, and the global thinking and acting locally is very, very important, and even naming the subjects as international human rights law or international intellectual property law is very, very significantly coined by you, and it should be reflected or the subjects are to be renamed aptly, so that there can be effective understanding of the subjects. Thank you very much, sir. And now I request our Professor Bhavya to conduct the Samvada session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for such an enriching session. We have some questions for you, sir. The first question is, diplomatic relations among countries have been affected due to the pandemic. What will the post-pandemic world order be like?
Well, I told you already in my lecture, I have not gone into the diplomatic perspective. It depends upon various issues, but it is not affected. Only we are thinking it is affected. It is diplomatic relations are not affected. Trade, everything is going on. Nothing is affected. Maybe a temporary halt for some time in during pandemics. This happened in past pandemics. Same will happen. Once it is over, the relations will come into normalcy. That's all. And because even in India, why we are going diplomacy within India, the situations have been affected within your own district. You can't go to another district under lockdown. Oh, will it be permanent? So same is the case with international also.
Okay, sir. The next question, sir. It has been noticed that the COVID virus has been augmenting death of people having other ailments. What should have been the international policy or initiatives to ensure the rights to health of global citizens?
Well, I told you the sanitary conventions and other things, WHO norms, but so many diseases, we don't have medicines. We don't have global cooperation. We are dealing with global corporation and we have national restrictions again, thanks to Supreme Court of India in the generic medicines with respect to Sweden and others. We have imposed and we are seeing, particularly, I don't know how many of you are aware, the last 15 days, there is an issue going on. There is one Anandaya in Nellore district in Andhra Pradesh who produced an Ayurvedic medicine that he puts only 2 drops in the ice. And he says COVID will not come. His village has not got COVID. Then, no, it's going on.
Yes,
Then
sir. Yes, sir.
it became a matter. And now finally, the matter went to the judiciary and the High Court of Andhra Pradesh. The 3 days back permitted Anandaya to supply the medicine. Now he is giving online.
Yes.
We don't believe in our own medicine of Ayurvedic or other things. We only think of Cipla and we see, if a poor hutman gives 2 idli very beautifully, we hate. A star hotel fellow gives you 100 rupees by making a show, we believe. So the patent and the multinational, particularly in drugs, the multinational companies only loot us. Let us think indigenous perspectives, which needs to be developed, particularly cultural property, cultural rights, which we need to protect. That's what generic medicines and perspectives, which IPR is yet to develop, which has not developed on the cultural property rights. The WIPO is still debating how to bring in a conventional cultural property rights. So when we think of these perspectives and we use it, definitely, but unfortunately what happened, because of the lack of knowledge of the ancient medicines or anything, the indigenous medicines, there are wrong people who are exploiting also. And that goes to, we believe a doctor. The doctor gives you a, if somebody says, if a doctor gives a prescription with 10 types of injections or medicines, he's a fine doctor. I'll tell you an example. When we went to a doctor in olden days, you see, a doctor told me in Pondicherry, there is nothing, sir, if you just, there was a cold for somebody, then he said, do ice cream. I said, cold and ice cream, nothing, there's no relationship. There's no relationship. A good doctor. And then I said, see, everybody says, don't take ice cream, don't. You sitting in AC also, no issues. He said, the treatment is different. Then I asked him, you are not suggesting any X-ray. Then he said, if I cannot read the patient by pulse, then I should depend on X-ray. I read what is the disease. So today, our doctors write 10 medicines because they don't know which medicine will work. 1. 2. The doctors are forced to write 10 medicines because the multinational companies and lobby. It's not only in India, whole world I'm talking. They do because at one point of time, the sugar level or BP level at 140. Today it has come to 120. Next year, 10 years, they will say 100 after 80. Who is you to stupid? It is the body resistance, body structure of a person decides. But doctors say, for everything, thanks to government of India, which fixed the price for COVID. I just wanted to go to RC-PCR test. One hospital says 2,500, another hospital says 500, another hospital says 5,000. Everybody is doing the same RC-PCR test. Why one hospital 1,000, Apollo 5,000? We still prefer Apollo because luxury. And you are made to wait in AC for 4 hours. Here a fellow stands in hot air. That's the only difference.
So good, sir. Actually, sir, even pursuant to the High Court order, the government of Andhra Pradesh is distributing that medicine of Anandaya in a packet where the MLA and the Chief Minister are being compromised.
They're distributing now the medicine.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
They're
Yes, sir.
distributing online throughout India.
Yes, sir. Very
Yes,
great.
sir.
Sir. Yeah, please.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
sir.
Go ahead.
So the next question, sir. Can states rely on any of the
Ask if the questions are related to the topic, because not general questions or political issues or other. If it is, it should be related to the topic.
Yes, sir. Can states rely on any of the defenses available for state responsibility should they fail to perform obligations owed under international law to other actors as a result of the efforts to address the COVID-19 pandemic?
Very excellent question this is, but in state responsibility, unfortunately, the draft conventions of state responsibility have not been accepted by the states. Why? Because the moment they accept, they will be held responsible and somebody may be pulled to International Court of Justice. Since there is the state response, that's why I said states only believe follow the law, basing on customary principles, basing on just cogence, which is very important. And none can, in global situations, none can pull anybody's leg, because every state's main important aim is its own nationals. It's common. But beyond the national, think of international. That is the global trend that needs to be looked in. Otherwise, international law, of course, thinks of welfareism of everybody, but that welfareism to come in, first of all, we have to remove the borders. Before removing the borders internationally, can we remove borders nationally? We have a reservation policy in this country, but unfortunately, a reserved category person of one particular state is a forward caste person in another state. Then the same is in various countries. America, each state has, of course, America has 2 constitutions. Australia has 2 constitutions. We have a single constitution, but we don't have uniqueness. When your own country, when your own home, when your own state, when you are not fighting for joining together, as international law says, participation. Are we participating? Are we helping health workers? Are we helping the government with good suggestions? Are we educating the citizens? No, when we don't take part, but right, we have to demand the states to come in. But still, they're ready, they cooperate, they deal with the maximum extent under the principles of IHR and health regulations, humanitarian law, human rights, to the maximum extent possible by themselves.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is the China's failure to comply with the international health regulation? The international health regulation basically says that if there is a spread of virus, that they have to immediately inform. So it is alleged that the China did not communicate immediately.
It's all speculation. It is only political issue. The Security Council has not taken up this issue. The Security Council said we will not take it up. So now we cannot do anything on this.
Okay, sir. So the next question is, World Health Organization had declared COVID-19 outbreak a public health emergency of international concern. That is to say, as an extraordinary event deemed under the international health regulation.
This question I covered in my entire lecture.
Okay, sir. Sir, Miss Suchitra Janardhan would like to ask questions. 1 minute.
One question. Suchitra may be, please, Suchitra, you may unmute yourself and raise one question. Are you there?
Is she there?
No, I don't find her now. Okay, that's a good thing. And go ahead with any other questions.
One of our student, Jerome Benson, he wants to pose a question, sir.
Yeah. No, let him let him draft it in the chat box. And in the meanwhile, we
Okay, sir.
request Shyam Padman sir's observation.
You can ask some of the senior teachers like Shukumar and others to tweak few words.
Yes, sir.
Respect to them.
Shyam Padman sir, kindly unmute yourself and your observation, please.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, a wonderful articulation and honest subject. That too, without getting embroiled in any of this political or other petty issues. You have done, sir. The topic was so vast and wide, but that was articulated in this minimum possible period of time. So, really wonderful to be part of this session, sir. I was just wondering, sir, pandemic or a crisis which affects the world, will that not a positive side of that be something that would help in visualizing our concept of Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, wherein national or international boundaries may not be of any consequence because humankind and their future is at stake, sir. Your thoughts on that, sir?
As I told you, this is a very critical issue that to be addressed by the nation states. But first of all, as you said, as the states themselves observe, they are mainly, first of all, because everybody is affected, their main concern is their national concern always. But international law, human rights and unfortunately, human rights, no country wants. No country wants human rights. That's without exception, because it's not laughing, sir. Let me tell you, in 2010, if I'm right, I think 2010 or 11, a survey was conducted in America, not in any other country, that how many people are aware of human rights education. Unfortunately, 6% of the respondents only responded they are aware of human rights education. So, human rights, as I told you, these four important components which binding on and other perspectives that are needed. States try to do themselves to some extent. Some cooperation is there. Say, the way India contributed in the first season, sending medicines and everything, discharged its global obligations. But others are not doing. Because we are following on the dharmic principles and we have advocated Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam concept to the world. And international advocates exactly the same. So we have to mature and come out to that level from the petty national, international, regional geopolitics and come out. This is not the time to look into the political perspectives or political, even China. Okay, whether Wuhan lab or we decide later. China is also affected. Maybe China, Russia, communistic states may not accept. Yesterday, I was talking to my friend in Canada. She told me, sir, I asked her, human rights, sir, don't talk human rights in Canada. Soviet country, socialist countries which doesn't like. And we have many socialists who doesn't want to talk human rights. And we have a human rights organization which is teethless in the country. We don't respect. We don't bother. I challenge, the Human Rights Act has been drafted in this country. Why not even a single academician is appointed to the Human Rights Council, National Human Rights Commission? Why judges and officers only should be appointed? Except judges, nobody else knows human rights. It is academicians who should run. Academicians should give the respect. We don't. Even scientists contrary themselves, under the behest of the various perspectives of COVID. See, if you take Covishield injection, because of lack of production, well, we appreciate scientists. Normally, a vaccination comes, normally it takes a period of 5 to 7 years, but we could produce quickly in pandemic. We appreciate some scientists, but some scientists, yesterday I was seeing in the TV, in the international channel, the present advisor to American president is having connection with the Wuhan lab. So where we go, where we think. But what I mean to say is that states are trying to do. They are coming. Nationally, when we are divided, international community, they have their responsibility to deal their nationals first. So that responsibility always binds them to put figures on various perspectives, but they are more or less They are more magnanimous than individuals in coming and helping on various aspects. That is the reason why the World Health Assembly, in fact, foolishly, the former president immediately said, I'm withdrawing from WHO. I'm not giving money to WHO. That will not be the attitude. Thanks to the present government, again it entered into WHO. International organizations cannot be pulled. Who is international organization? We. Same way, international is also developed by the states for themselves. So at least international law 60 to 70% is accepted by the states. Domestic law itself we are not able to accept in spite of we have judiciary, everything. So that way, it's a very complicated issue, what you have raised it. I don't say that it is directly, but as I said, we have to see the legal issues, not the political perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank
Absolutely
you.
correct.
Thank
Just one more observation with your permission, sir. Because of this pandemic and the international initiative in compacting it, sir, do you think that it will have an impact on the pollution aspect also? Because the world can be.
I've just mentioned the International Law Commission and the last Environmental Pollution Convention. All these perspectives will have. In fact, even the law of the sea, enclosed one, enclosed two. The subject is so vast. That's why I've covered many areas. International air law, international civil aviation law. That's why I said we have to go into each organization. If we go into UNEP, you have hundreds of resolutions adopted on COVID-19 and environmental perspective. If you go to ICAO adopted various. Each organization, all the 56. If you go into World Bank has brought in a lot of regulations. If you go to UNDP, United Nations Development Program, which is the backbone for international economic and social council. Each organization has come out with various principles on COVID. Yes, definitely, it has effect on. But one way, the principles contributed is that, as Mustafa Tolba once said it, this Mother Earth or the globe is we have not inherited from our forefathers. We have inherited from our future generations. So it is
just the caretakers.
It is our responsibility to hand over them as good as possible, or the way we have received, but not to spoil it.
Absolutely, we are just caretakers.
Now we are only caretakers. In fact, on the life earth, as in the Gita, our Indian philosophy said it very clearly, we are only passerbys.
Absolutely.
But we goes and everything, we think I'm going to live 100 years, I will conquer, I will kill the other person. We are just only passengers. When our halt comes, we have to go to the burial.
Thank you, sir, for your erudition and wisdom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
So good, sir. Thank you for the raising such important points, Shyam Padman sir. And Honorable P.S. Narayana sir was seen, and kudos to P.S. Narayana sir. Sir, if you are available, kindly put forth your observations.
Intellectual property rights.
Almost all subjects here pen books.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, more than 200, I think now. Okay, sir. I think
develop various programs in international law. I tell you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Pictures in international law and develop it. It is a global subject. Get the law.
We made a great beginning today, sir. We look forward for n number of sessions.
I will do my full assistance. What will you do?
Very kind of you, sir. Very kind of you. And even Shyam Padman sir wants your presence there in his platform. And kindly consider that, and we'll talk about that.
So we will again think of that South Indian chapter which you have left it halfway through, sir. Maybe we can revive it.
The South Indian chapter of international law or international law, South Indian.
We will revive it,
sir. Yes, good. And Bhavya, are there any more questions?
I think
one last question by Dr. Ajay is there.
Yes.
He says that COVID-19 orphans have been a rising issue in the country as well as the world. How international law of human rights protects the rights of COVID-19 orphans?
I've delivered everything in the lecture.
Orphans, sir. I think Ajay is talking about orphans, international orphans.
Orphans.
orphans due to COVID?
Well, there are separate laws and protection regulations are there. As I told you, the Children Rights Convention or various other rights you have to look into specific provision. International law, almost every area you have a convention or a treaty or a principle or a declaration. Something or other is available. It's not like national law where you have nothing. International law, everything is available. Only thing is we have to go to the particular perspective and see and analyze only that perspective. It's a vast area and then link into that particular issue. We cannot categorize broadly because in global community, issues are so vast and deal with various perspectives. So we have to narrow down the topic, look into only that perspective, dealing with that aspect of it. Suppose now Shamchar has asked environment. Well, environment again, very huge. Environment, which issue? Again, you have to go into the particular perspective.
Okay, Honorable Justice P.S. Narayana sir joined, and kind of you, sir,
He can only give us suggestions, comments.
yes.
Good afternoon, sir, Justice sir.
Excellent.
Yes, sir. No. Now
Yes.
you have muted yourself, sir. Kindly unmuted. Yes, sir. Yes.
It is something excellent. You are able to hear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But low voice. However, please continue, sir.
It is something excellent. However, I am attracted by the excellent decision of Justice Shah, which has been narrated.
Yes, sir.
The facts are a bit peculiar, and the way in which he had explained, I think it is something which I record my appreciation. Okay.
Good. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for the kind observation about the appreciation of AP Shah sir's decision while he was in Madras High Court.
I have followed the lecture very carefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of you, sir. Kind of. Yeah. The question and answer session is
That's all, sir.
okay. And, go ahead with the next item in the agenda.
On your own college magazine, maybe you can start an online perspective on students on international law, some topics or competitions you can start with, so that now it is in the, thanks to COVID has given us the technology. Sitting at home, you can roam. So
Surely, sir, surely.
you are in Bangalore, I'm in Vizag. So we're able to talk and listen and see. Thanks to COVID again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So COVID is not only destroyed, COVID has developed also.
That's correct, sir. And this Nyaya Samvada became virtual Nyaya Samvada because of that. And we have been grateful to COVID Devata. There are temples being built to COVID. COVID-19 Devata.
Bridge the gap between the states.
Yes, sir. Okay, please go ahead with the next item in agenda.
Yes, thank you very much, sir, for taking part in Samvada, the question answer session. Participants, please note feedback link for today's program has been put up in the chat. You are requested to fill the feedback form. It takes only a moment to say thank you, but your thoughtfulness will be remembered a long time. Now I request Ms. Vibishnavi, faculty member, Kristu Jayanti College of Law, to propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning, Onandal present in this forum. I, Vibishnavi, faculty member, Kristu Jayanti College of Law, consider the occasion as an honor and privilege to extend vote of thanks. On behalf of the Kristu Jayanti College of Law, I extend sincere thanks to our chief guest, Professor Dr. T.S.N. Sastry, for making this session so informative and also for giving excellent coverage on the significance of international law and relations during the pandemic and providing insights on JUSCOGEN's international conventions and 4 main important aspects of human rights. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out your precious time and consenting to be the chief guest. Your thoughts have enhanced our minds and shown us a new path. We all are inspired by your great words, sir. Thank you, sir, for
Thank you,
answering.
sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for answering all questions in a manner which is clear, simple, and easy to understand. Thanks again for adorning the occasion and all words of wisdom that radiated a source of energy within us. And we thank you for being with us today, sir. I also wish to express my gratitude to our director, Reverend Father Emmanuel P.J., Kristu Jayanti College of Law, for his constant encouragement and support. We are extremely grateful for your encouragement, and without your guidance, this event would not have been a success. We thank you, Father. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our principal, Professor Dr. Mohan Bola, sir, who is a constant source of inspiration and guidance in all our endeavors. We are immensely grateful for your support, sir. We thank you, sir. Now, I would like to extend my thanks to the galaxy of participants and prominent people in this webinar, Honorable Justice P.S. Narayana, sir, Advocate Sri Shyam Padman, sir, Professor N.M. Subramaniam, Professor Shivakumar, sir, Professor S.V. Nageshwara Rao, sir, Professor Preeta Brahma, Professor Srivatsava, Professor Geeta Giriraj, Professor Sudhakar, Professor Sudarshan, Professor Sridhar, Professor Suchrita, Professor K. Vijayalakshmi, Sri Ambika Badi, Dr. Sita Kumari, Dr. Vikrant Yadav, Dr. Janaki, Dr. Ajay, who spared their valuable time and graced the session with their presence. Thank you all for your presence and representing your valuable views. I extend my gratitude to all the advocates, professors, and students of various institutions for their active participation in the program. Thank you all very much. I also extend my thanks to our faculty members and students for their enormous cooperation in the organization of this event. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to the tech team of Kristu Jayanti College, Kristu Jayanti Law College for the constant creative support in hosting the session. At last, once again, a warm thanks to all the people in this webinar for making this session a great success. Thank you all. I remain.
Thank you very much. And the galaxy of participants, we might be missing, and we look forward for such enlightening sessions. And we made a good beginning today on an international subject, and we look forward for more and more sessions with your kind cooperation in coming times. And thank you very much for taking part in this and making every such event a great success. And especially, I take this opportunity once again to extend my warm thanks to Honorable Professor T.S. Shastri Garu from my bottom of heart on behalf of the management and all of us here for gracing this occasion and making a knowledgeable deliberation today. Thank you very much, sir. And thanks one and all.
Thank you, sir. Now I request each one of you to kindly pay attention as the Jayantian anthem is going to be played. With this, we have come to the end of today's program. I thank each one of you for your valuable participation. Thank you one and all, and have a good day. Thank you.
Like a golden disc, sun in the rising east, lights up a life divine, fills knowledge in our minds. Laurels and the book make us sublime. With the mighty Lord, we soar high on the bedrock of faith. Integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence. joy and peace, sprawl our hearts and minds. On we march our goals as a beacon for the world, with a passion for our growth and a love for humankind, united and strong in excellence on the bedrock of faith, integrity of force, human dignity true, excellence we strive. Christu Jayanti, light and prosperity. Christu Jayanti, light and prosperity.
Sir, you are muted, sir.
Thank you very much. And all the students are requested to write the assignment and submit to the respective teachers. Thank you one and all.
Shall we end the meeting, sir?
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.